AEW Full Gear is done and over, and it could have been better. Just like I do with every pay-per-view. I took a shower, I jerked off, and I got my thoughts together, so let's talk about it. We open up the night with Pac versus Darby Allin. Pac would gorilla press Darby onto the floor with a sick thud. Pac would Indian burn Darby Allin's second-degree burns he got from the blood and guts match. Pac would launch Darby into the corner, slinging him to the outside. Darby would hit a dropkick off the top rope onto Pac while he was in a chair. While Darby has Pac in the Scorpion Death Lock, Yuta would come out and distract the ref, and that would allow Pac to hit Darby with a baseball bat to pick up the victory over Darby. Very good match, though it was mostly Pac killing Darby Allin. Next up was Marina, Shafir, and Megan Bayne versus Toni Storm and Mina Shirikawa versus the Babes of Wrath versus the Sisters of Sin in a fatal four-way match where the winner picks their stipulation for their semifinals match in the Tag Team Championship tournament. This was an okay match. Everyone got their time to shine. Toward the end, Toni Storm and Harley Cameron would exchange roll-ups, but we all know Toni has the biggest small package there is, and she uses the small package roll-up to win the match. And now Toni and Mina will decide their semifinals match. Next up is Brodido versus FTR for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Bandito would jump over Stokely onto FTR, but they would catch him and slam him into the announce table. Brody King would Death Valley driver Cash into Dax laying in the corner. Brody King would go for a dive onto Dax, but Stokely would take the huge ass bullet for him. Bandito would hold up Cash with one hand and would throw him onto the outside onto Dax. Bandito was just a freak of nature. Bandito would hit a 21-plex on Cash, but while Bandito was getting up, he would run into the Shatter Machine, but Brody King was able to break it up at the last second. Cash would grab one of the titles, and as Brody's trying to take the belt from him, he would hit Bandito with it. Brody King and Bandito would do a Shatter Machine of their own. FTR would go for the Doomsday Device, but Bandito would reverse it in midair. FTR would hit a Spike Pile Driver on Brody King on the apron, and they would hit Bandito with a Spike Pile Driver, but Bandito kicks out. He will not give up, and with one last defiant taunt, FTR would hit Bandito with another Shatter Machine to win the match and capture the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Very great match. If this is the last time we see Brodido as a team, it was a great time while it lasted. Next up is the Casino Gauntlet match to determine the first ever AEW National Champion. And I gotta say, the belt looks very beautiful and very classic. Ricochet would try and dive into Claudio, but he would catch him with an uppercut. Orange Cassidy would try and pin Ricochet, but Claudio would lift him up by his pants. Mark Davis comes in and he starts cleaning house, cause he is a shit brick house. Mark would hit Ricochet with a vicious pile driver, but ultimately Ricochet would catch Kevin Knight by surprise with a spirit gun to win the match, and now Ricochet is the inaugural AEW National Champion. It was a fun match, nothing too crazy, but big congrats to Ricochet. He was one of my picks to win this match. Next up is Jon Moxley versus Kyle O'Reilly in a no-holds-barred match. Of course Jon Moxley's ass has a fork, and Moxley would stab Kyle with a fork on his head, his back, just everywhere. Moxley would bite Kyle's head, and then Moxley would jab the fork into Kyle's nipple. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? Kyle would have Moxley in an arm bar and would stab Moxley with a fork. Moxley would have Kyle in a STF, but Kyle would stab Moxley's hand with the fork. Moxley would put Kyle's arm into a chair and he would stomp on it, almost snapping it in half. But ultimately Kyle would have Moxley in the ankle lock with a chain wrapped around Moxley's ankle, and Moxley would tap out once again to Kyle O'Reilly. Very physical and technical matchup. Moxley couldn't hang with Kyle O'Reilly technically, so he had to resort to that old trusty fork he has. Moxley has made Kyle look like $1 million. Fantastic match, and the look Claudio has, this isn't gonna end good for Moxley. Next up is Kyle Fletcher versus Mark Briscoe in a no disqualifications match for the TNT Championship, but if Mark loses, he must join the Don Callis family. Mark would go for a flying elbow on Kyle, but Kyle would catch him and hit him with a brain buster on a steel chair. Mark would trip Kyle onto the steel steps. Mark would go for a dive while Kyle was on a ladder, but Kyle would move out of the way. Kyle would body slam Mark onto a ladder. Kyle would slam the ladder onto Mark. Jesus, Kyle, leave the ladder alone. Mark would go for a J Driller, but Kyle would reverse it and sends him through a table in the corner. Mark would hit Kyle with a Fisherman Buster on some thumbtacks. Mark would hit a Froggy Bow off the top of a ladder through a table, but Kyle would be able to kick out. Kyle would stab Mark with a screwdriver. Kyle would set up the screwdriver into the turnbuckle, looking to hit Mark with a brain buster and most likely fucking kill him, but Mark would be able to move out of the way, thank God. Mark would put Kyle through a barbed wire table and would be able to hit the J Driller to win the match and win the TNT Championship. Very well deserved win for Mark Briscoe, and just a fantastic match. These guys don't miss when they're in the ring together. Kyle may have lost the TNT Championship, but we have bigger fish to fry. Next up is Kenny Omega and the Jurassic Express versus versus the Young Bucks and Josh Alexander in a $1 million match. I don't have much to say about this match. The match was fine, I just really wasn't invested into it. But the Bucks and Josh Alexander would be able to pick up the win and the $1 million. Maybe on second watch I'll like this match more, but for right now it was just fine. After the match, the Don Callis family would attack Kenny Omega, and as Don Callis is trying to take the Young Bucks backstage, they throw down the money to come and help Kenny Omega. But Kenny Omega will not accept their handshake, because they all hug it out. Next up is Kris Statlander versus Mercedes Mone for the AEW Women's World Championship. Mercedes would come out with a bunch of men holding her championships, and Jesus Christ, who the fuck is that? Holy shit, put him in the Continental Classic. Statlander would hit Mercedes with a blue thunder bomb on the outside. Statlander would hit Mercedes with a rib breaker off the top rope, but ultimately Statlander would hit the Midnight Fever to win the match and retain her AEW Women's World Championship. Kris Statlander has put her past demons to bed and has finally beat Mercedes Mone. Mercedes has all these championships, but she just can't win the big one. Is this the start of the downfall of Mercedes Mone? We move backstage and the Don Callis family is bickering, and Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita announce that they will be in the Continental Classic. This is gonna be good. AEW, you know what the final should be. And we move on to the main event, Hangman Adam Page versus Samoa Joe in a steel cage match for the AEW World Championship. Hangman would come out to Red Dead Redemption music, catching me by surprise, and I gotta say, it fits him damn well. Early on, Joe would be busted wide open, and Joe looks like an absolute psycho. Joe is bleeding so much, he gets thrown into the cage and he leaves his mark on it. Shibata would come out and try to climb the cage with the World Championship, but Eddie Kingston would come out to stop him. And that allows Hobbs to come out and he tears the fucking lock off the door. Hobbs would try and hit Hangman with a championship, but Hangman would duck and low blow him. And with the door open, Hangman is able to hit the buckshot lariat, but the ref is down. Hook comes out to try and get the ref up, but he would hit Hangman with the championship and reveals he's been with the Ops all along. Samoa Joe would hit the Muscle Buster on the AEW World Championship, and he would win the match and win the AEW World Heavyweight Championship for a second time. Very surprising. I didn't think Samoa Joe was gonna win this match, but damn, I don't mind at all that he did. The match was good. It was a little bit underwhelming, but I still enjoyed it. If all the shenanigans didn't happen, this would have been great. And now Samoa Joe is the AEW World Champion once again. But the lights go out, and the lights shine on Prince Nana, and Swerve Strickland would return after being away with injury, and he looks bigger and badder than ever. And as he stares down the bloodied Hangman, he takes out the Ops Dojo, and him and Hangman stare down Samoa Joe side by side. What a surprising way to end Full Gear. And that was AEW Full Gear. It was good, but it could have been better. I honestly could have gone without the $1 million match and the 4-way women's tag team match. I don't think they were all that necessary. And even though this pay-per-view could have been better, if you look at WWE and compare what they're doing, it's fucking night and day. Let me know what you all think of Full Gear in the comments, and I hope you all enjoyed this video. I'll make more silly videos like this in the future, so stop on by when the time comes. But until then, be careful.